So do you like your model kits big? And by big I mean huge, and by huge I mean massive. This right here is MENG's Eva Unit 1. This stands at a huge, colossal 19 inches tall. Honestly, I think this might be the biggest freestanding model kit in my entire collection. By the way, if you do want one of your own, this video is sponsored by those awesome people over at Hobbylink Japan, so there's a link in the description, and I have to say, I highly recommend this. But yeah, before I go into taking a look at it anymore, let's wind on back a little bit to the build. So first off, this thing comes in an absolutely colossal sized box, as you would expect. There is a huge amount of plastic inside of this box, but I will mention one little aspect. The bags inside of this have that kind of weird residue on them that sometimes some model kits have. So this dries out my hand something awful. I don't know what it is, but I highly recommend wearing some gloves when you're at least unboxing this because it was a bit gross. The actual model kit when it's finished isn't like that at all. I'm not sure what it is, honestly. As for the plastic we do get inside of the box, this is of ridiculously high quality. This is the pre-colored version of this particular kit. I don't know if there's a non-colored version out there, but that does mean that this is painted on the runners and to an awesomely high standard. The colors in here are phenomenal. The build here is so well designed. First off, you can break the bigger runners or sprues in here into smaller ones, which are all labeled. Inside the manual then it tells you which runners you need, even these subdivided tiny ones. So that means you only have on your desk what you need at the time, and most parts you finish, like an arm or the head or the torso, means you actually end up emptying out a lot of these smaller and medium-sized runners, so you're getting through it really quick. It means less mess in your desk, and it's a very super streamlined build. Like I mentioned, this kit has a lot of painted elements, most parts if I'm not mistaken, and this is actually painted to a super high standard. I will also mention that does mean it's undergated for the most part too, which means you're not actually ruining any of this nice paintwork whatsoever. There are some tiny parts for some extreme detail where it's needed. The head, the upper arms, even the bottom of the feet. The detail here is ridiculous, which honestly did surprise me a little bit. I thought with a bigger kit, you'd end up with a lot of big parts and not necessarily so much detail. That'd be quantity over quality, but that is not the case. Super detailed. All of the fixtures on this build are absolutely perfect, so this is suitable from beginners to expert builders. You just snip them out, attach them together, and everything fits perfect. There's no need for any additional tools, so no drilling, no sanding, no nothing. Just snip and put together. In here there is some wiring. We've got an LED unit for the eyes and the chest. Sadly, I will mention though that I do not have any batteries for this review, but there is some screwing involved inside of the torso, but they even threw in a little screwdriver, which to me is absolutely cool. The way the LED unit is built into it is very intelligent, so it's hidden for the most part, so no wires sticking out anywhere. But I will mention inside of the torso, it is quite easy to pinch the wires by accident while closing up the chest, so be careful that you lay out the wires inside the chest the right way first. The legs in here are ridiculously impressive. The upper leg and lower leg frame is molded on the runner with the joint in the middle, which is like a kind of circular sliding mechanism. This almost reminds me of a real grade in a way. This is awesome. When it comes to the build, there's only one real letdown as far as I'm concerned, and that is the hands. First off, you get a ton of them, which is awesome, but these are painted. And they're painted with this little piece of frame still attached to them. So that means the minute you actually snip off this bit of frame, that means you've damaged the paint. They could have maybe painted this in a different way. They'd probably use this little bit of a frame to hold it up to spray it down, but this definitely is the worst part of the build, but definitely not a deal breaker. Finally then, you do have a little bit of a production line style build when it comes to the hands. Each of the hands in here has multiple parts, which is the hand itself, the knuckles, and two tiny little yellow details. This will take you quite some time to assemble them all, but in the end, it is totally worth it. And we've got crazy amount of weapons in here as well, but I didn't film that. Anyway, let's jump right into the aesthetics. So to start up the aesthetics, just to give you an idea of just how big this absolute behemoth is, there is a high-grade Gundam model kit. There is a master-grade Gundam model kit. Perfect grade Gundam model kit. So yeah, shifting all of them off to the left a little bit just to get this in frame. There finally is the 1/48th scale mega size Gundam model kit. So the Eva is even taller than that. Honestly, this right here is an absolute unit of a model kit. It's crazy. And finally grabbing the biggest Gundam I have in my collection, which is this right here, the Mega Size Unicorn, which is also 19 inches tall. So that's the only thing that's about at head height with this, so it's almost the biggest freestanding mecha model kit that I have. And I know, debatable mecha. So jumping right into the full 360 spin, and this thing is so big I can barely fit it in frame, so I'm gonna have to stick it in here twice, otherwise it's gonna be taking up 1/8 of the center of the screen. This thing is that super long, lanky Eva look, and it's done it perfectly. From a distance, you can't really see all the detail that's on here just yet. We'll zoom on in a minute, but this thing looks ridiculous. You really can't get the actual feeling of the size of this through a video, but this thing is huge. The silhouette of Eva Unit 1 is absolutely perfect. This, of course, is the rebuild of Evangelion version, not the original series version. This looks great. The detail is fantastic. Now let's zoom on in a little bit closer to check it all out. So first off, zooming in on the head on this, and it is absolutely stunning. This looks so good. I will mention it would look a little better if I could find more than just one LR44 battery. You need 2 of them for this to light up those eyes in the chest, but for whatever reason, I had a ton of them lying around somewhere. I have no idea where they are whatsoever, so that is a little bit crummy. It would look a lot better if these eyes were lit up, so I can't actually test these out today, sadly. So as for the individual details on this head, this kit does have a fully opening mouth. The only thing that is not color accurate here is the teeth inside of this. These should be, well, teeth colored, so if you want those to be perfect, you will have to bust out some paints. Besides that though, this is ridiculous. The horn on here, this is painted inside of the box in these colors, and everything else you're seeing here is color separation. The red scar-like pattern on the face, the big vents and fins in green on the front, the metallic outer armor teeth and chin, all is in color molded or painted on the runners. This looks phenomenal. And speaking of the colors on this, there is a whole lot going on here. So overall, the main colors on here, the purple is in a metallic. Now, this may make or break this for you. So I know some people like a solid purple on their Eva Unit 1, and some people like a metallic. So this does look a little bit pearlescent, does catch the light in that sort of way. Looks good in some lights, may look a little better if it was just a flat purple in other lights, but that will come down to your own personal taste. Besides that, then we've got some molded red, what seems to be a molded gunmetal, but it's very hard to tell on this kit. We've got a lot of almost matte black, which really works well beside that metallic purple, and the green on here is mind-blowingly beautiful. This has such impact. It's a matte, almost neon green. Finally, then we have the yellow, which is very shiny. This has a bit of a gloss finish to it, and this, as far as I know, is painted, and some of it almost feels like it has a little bit of shading to it. This is gorgeous. If you zoom in extremely close onto the surface of this kit, there's a lot of tiny, fine detailing all over the place. This isn't overkill by any margin and makes sure to take the original design into consideration. It's both simplistic from a distance, but when you zoom in, these details are there. One thing that really blows me away with this kit is the bottoms of the feet. These are made out of a whole ton of different parts layered up, and it looks stupendously good for something that's going to be on the ground most of the time and not being seen. The hands look incredible too. Besides that one little bit you have to clip off on the back, these look phenomenal. The detail is crazy. We've got some really eye-catching silver paint on these. All in all, this thing looks absolutely astounding, and if that isn't enough, there is actually water slide decals included here for adding detail up onto the shoulders, onto the forearms, all of this tiny detail. Now, I can't actually speak to the quality of these because I did not have the time to use them, but hopefully before I actually build the big, huge transport platform, yes, there is a sold separately transport platform for this thing. It is, well, it has to be absolutely huge. This is the size the Eva is on it, and we know the Eva is 19 inches tall. This has to be massive, but yeah, hopefully by the time I build that, or the Eva Unit 2, which is coming out, I'll get to use these water slides and check how they work out. So now jumping into the accessories, and this kit comes with a ridiculous amount of stuff. That right there is an A2 cutting mat. Every one of those squares is a centimeter. And what we actually get in here is a whopping 18 hands. That is 18. They're not all pairs, most are pairs, but we have a couple of unique hands here. We've got the absolutely ginormous lengthy spear of Cassius. We've got 2 progressive knives, the Pallet Rifle, the umbilical cable, entry plug, and the multi-barrel machine gun, which, once again, is absolutely huge. This is ridiculous. A lot of these are actually painted on the runner too, if not all of them, and these are crazy awesome. Let's check them out. So when it comes to the hands in here, we've got a bunch of posed ones like fists, got a pair. Super widespread dynamic, also got a pair. Clenched, also got a pair of those. Relaxed, also a pair. Super widespread right hand, we've only got the one of those. A whole ton of miscellaneous holding hands we'll take a look at very, very soon. And these ones right here, which are for pulling off a bunch of iconic poses. This one right here, you can see in the manual, I'm not going to do. And then this right here, that classic over-the-top awesome Eva running pose. Now, I will mention you may have some trouble with this, mainly because, well, it's not going to stand up like this. It might flop a little bit too without any support. Now, this kit does not come with a stand, but MENG do actually have one that is sold separately. Not sure if it's out right now or just coming out around the same time as the Eva Unit 2, but there will or is one available. Will one available? Will one available? Will be one. Will be one. So moving through the accessories now and starting from the smallest to the biggest, and first off we've got the entry plug. So this is all in white, but if you did get a pan liner to this, you could get all that detail out, and even better, we do have a water slide in here as well. So if you pan line this up to get the lines out, and then stick this on, it should look awesome, but this might affect its purpose. And the actual function to this is pretty cool. So first up, you can open up the whole back of the Eva just like so to expose this little hole here in the back. This is where the entry plug goes, of course, but the cool aspect to this is, and sadly you won't see it in this review, is the fact that putting the entry plug in here is what actually activates and deactivates the lights in the eyes and chest of this unit. That is extremely, extremely cool, but I can't comment on how well it works. Anyway, when you do close it all up, it closes in flush, even with the entry plug in there. Next up in here, accessory-wise, we do have the progressive knives. So we have two of these. The paintwork and the detail on these is fantastic. They do look great. We've got specific hands for holding onto these with the thumb extended in that total Evangelion kind of way. These attach onto the wrist perfectly, and in the hand, these do look great. You've got plenty of articulation to get these into a stabbing pose. I will mention the wrists on this kit are that kind of split ball joint, so you get rotation close to the forearm, rotation at the hand, and we've got some flexion extension at the actual ball too. So you can get all the stabby poses that you need. So when these are not in use, you're able to collapse the blade just like so. Open up the pylon like this, it opens up very nicely. It has a like click into place mechanism. You can then pop the progressive knife into the pylon and close it up flush and perfect just like this. That is cool. So next up in here, we've got that absolutely massive Gatling. This, well, what can I say, is ridiculously big. It does have a rotating barrel, which always makes me very, very happy, and the detail on here is incredible. This is all painted in a nice gunmetal. It's all undergated for the most part, so that means you can't see any knobs or anything, and well, it just looks great. We do have a specific hand for holding onto this. There is no kind of mechanism to disassemble this to slide it into the hand. This is just one of those cases of jam it into that hand and hope for the best. And in the end, I guess it worked out. So getting this attached to the Eva is simple enough. We have a left hand for supporting the front of it, which pops on like so. Then you just pop in the hand holding onto this multiple barrel machine gun, and there we go. At this point, I'm just wishing, really wishing that I had one of those stands, because I want this in some kind of an action pose. Everything I've been doing so far, when it comes to the accessories here, it's been pretty much on its knees. Either way, it does look awesome. It can support it fairly well. It does fall forward with its ab crunch a little bit while holding onto it, but this looks great, the detail's awesome, and I just wish I had a stand. So the next weapon we have in here is the Pallet Rifle, and believe it or not, this is even more detailed than, well, I guess pretty much anything we've seen in this box so far. This is ridiculous. This is painted for the most part. I think the gray is not painted, but that green I think is, the yellow, the red, and the detail on here is phenomenal. The little rivet marks, the panel lines running through it, the rail up top, the various little things. I'm not sure if this is meant to be a safety switch or what. Even the trigger has a little bit of a spring-loaded mechanism. This thing is ridiculous. It is absolutely stunning. So attaching this onto the Eva involves the exact same hands we would have used with the Gatling. Now this is a little bit disappointing to me, because that means because they share the same right hand holding hand with the trigger finger, the pulling it out and sticking it back in again repeatedly over and over again with these hands could end up loosening the hand over time. It already feels a little bit loose after doing this once, so it would have been nice if they actually included two of these hands, so you could actually leave them attached to the weapon, so you don't have to keep taking it off and on again. But anyway, once we get it into the hands, this looks absolutely stunning. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So next up in here, we have the absolutely colossal spear of Cassius. This is ridiculously big. As far as I can see from the cutting mat here, measuring it, it's 60 centimeters long. And that's kind of hard to measure because it's longer than the cutting mat actually is. So I think it is 2 feet long. So first off, I will mention two things about this. So we do have clear green gems in this, but I had the feeling these wouldn't work out perfectly. So you'll notice one of these is a little bit dull. That is this out of box. The other one then shines a little bit, and that's because I use this right here on it. This is the Gundam Marker EX Gundam Mecha Silver, or the Chrome Silver Gundam Marker. I just painted this on the underside of the gem. That gives it a reflective side, so when you pop it in here, it catches the light a little bit better. The other thing I will mention is, these don't actually hold on too well. The spear ends just fall off. They're not fitted perfectly. So I recommend just using the best model kit tool that exists in the world ever, blue tack, or in this case, white tack. All you do here is throw a little ball of it on the end of the stick like so, then squeeze the top down over it like this. You will end up with a little bit of excess bulging out. All you do then is pull it up a little bit, use the ball of blue tack then to pull the excess off, and then slide it back down again. Perfect. This will not fall off, and you won't even know that it's in there. So the important thing about using something like the blue tack as opposed to a full-time permanent solution is you actually will need to pop the ends of these every now and then to get this spear into the hands. So just pop off the top, slide it into the hand like so, then you pop the hand on. Now I will mention, the shaft of this is made out of metal, so it is quite heavy. So this will cause the Eva right here to kind of fall towards its side. It can't actually support it with the strength of its midsection. However, you could just pop it like this right here as a kind of impromptu walking stick. However, I don't really recommend doing this because the actual business ends of this spear, the pointy parts, are plastic. Not like the rest of it, which is metal, so you can end up breaking them, damaging them, or warping them. But you could do it. You could. So this can also be held in two hands. The left hand you use to hold this is the same as the progressive knife. You just pop it in like so, but I will mention, at this point now with this big heavy weapon in two hands, this will cause the ab crunch to push all the way to the front like so. In order to counteract this, you can just kick the hips back like this because we do have a rotating mechanism inside there, and you will have the full ab crunch bend, but will still be sort of standing up straight in a pretty kick-ass battle ready pose. So lastly in here then we have the umbilical cable which attaches into the back. Now this looks great, but there is one bit of wasted potential here. If this was actually made out of a bit of super strong, and I mean super strong posable wire, you'd actually be able to coil it up behind the Eva and stick it in its back as a kind of stand to support it in some poses, which I guess is a little bit of a DIY project if you don't want to actually shell out for the action base. As for the attachment, it just plugs right into this red segment on the back of Eva Unit 1, simply and effectively, and holds in perfectly, looking fantastic. So now jumping into the articulation, and when it actually comes to the structural integrity of the finished build, first off I will mention it is top heavy as the Eva design tends to be, so this might be a bit of a fall risk if it's just put up on a shelf as it is right here. I'll also mention that if you do hold it horizontally like this, the ab crunch will flop forward and back depending on the way that you put it. So you may need to strengthen up inside of the torso as you're building it by thickening up some of the joints, or you could just leave it as it is. I find it's not really a problem in most poses, besides when you're dealing with that big old heavy lance. Otherwise, for the most part, it tends to hold up good. First up with the head, we've got that opening and closing jaw we would have seen before. The neck has multiple joints in it, which allows it to look up and down quite a bit. We've got full side to side, which is very, very nice. And we have that second joint closer to the actual torso that allows the head to move forward in this hunched-like, iconic Eva sort of way. So now on the shoulder, we've got a joint inside the torso, which allows the arm to move forward and back like so, gives us a little bit of up and down. Inside the actual shoulder itself, we have some up and down as well, which lets you raise the arm pretty much parallel to the ground. We've got the full 360 spin up here in the shoulder via a peg. The shoulder pylons attach into the rear of the upper arm via a small ball joint, but this still gives us quite a bit, enough to keep this out of the way of the head and body when you're moving the arm around. Also, we do have a little bit of rotation at the upper arm, but just a bit. At the elbow, we have a double jointed bend, so this can bend all the way up, all you could ever need. At the wrist, we've seen this before, this is one of those split ball joints, which means we have rotation at both the hand and the wrist, as well as flexion and extension at the split ball. So once again, all you could need. The ab crunch here involves multiple joints. We've got all the way to the front and to the back like so. I will mention this is a little bit on the loose side, so that does mean in some poses it could flop forward and back. When it's standing up normally like this isn't necessarily the case. Side to side we've got a little bit, and when it comes to the rotation in here, it is quite limited. We've got two opening sections on the chest, which open up just like so, ever so slightly to show the detail inside of it. Moving down out to the waist, and we've got a drum mechanism in here, not unlike the Real Grade by Bandai, which allows the legs to move up and back together on this drum. So we do have front kick and rear kick as well at the actual peg that is independent to this rolling joint. So this is actually quite handy for pulling off complex poses. When it comes to the splits, this is probably the most limited joint on it, so you can't kick the legs outwards too far up. This is the limit to that. Just like the elbow, we have a double jointed knee that gets you quite the bend. We also have a moving segment of armor here at the knee, but I will mention this is a little bit on the loose side. Might want to glue or cement that one. Moving down to the ankle now, we've got this ankle armor on a little bit of a ball joint, moves around a bit. The foot can pivot forward and back just like so, not too bad. The side-to-side pivot is quite limited, and finally here we do have a toe bend. So when it comes to the usual pose I do in order to check the full articulation of a kit, this one definitely comes a little bit short. This one's definitely great when it comes to just standing poses and a couple of typical Evangelion poses like the running pose. But besides that, you're not going to get anything too over the top. The most limited aspect about it is the way the hip kicks out to the side. You don't really get much out of that, so you can't get too much lunges. But once again, this has been designed with specific Evangelion poses in mind, and it can pull those off quite well. So anyway, that right there is it for the review, and when it comes to the aesthetics, this thing blows me away entirely. It's absolutely huge, and it is perfect down to the minute detail. The colors look great, a lot of the parts are painted on the runner, and it just is mind-blowingly huge, will look great in any display. When it comes to the accessories, these are all great, they work great. We've got tons of hands, tons of options, spear, Gatling, pallet rifle, progressive knives, you've got it all. There is also the options for a stand or a display base as well, which is pretty cool. Lastly then, when it comes to the articulation, this is designed to pull off some typical Eva Unit 1 poses. Sure, it won't pull off a lot of other things, but I guess it's a bit of the trade-off that you get for something being so big. So honestly, it comes down to the question of, do you want yourself an absolutely massive Eva Unit 1 model kit? Then this is definitely worth every penny. Comes in at about 100 to 110 euro or dollars, which is incredible considering the size and what comes inside of the box. Anyway, if you do want one of your own, there is a link down there in the description. I got mine through Hobbylink Japan. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more model kit reviews, and I'll see you next time. As always, this video and every video would not be possible without each and every one of you guys who watches my videos. And special thanks to those of you who are supporting me over on Patreon and on the channel members, including Caleb Engelhart, Global Frequency Studios, Go Little Rockstar, Gunpla UK Limited, Joe, Kill Me Inc., Lauren Seahack, RG59061, and Van Fawn.